visiting Fort Necessity National Battlefield in Fayette County, Pennsylvania. This is where the first battle of the French and Indian War in North America took place. This is also where George Washington was leading an army for one of the first times, and it was also his first and only surrender during his tenure as a military officer. And although his career kind of got off to a difficult start, this really shaped his perspective moving forward and really helped him be an important leader. So the Battle of Fort Necessity took place in 1754, and what happened is that the British had their soldiers all gathered here and they put together this small fort to protect their supplies. And all around them they were surrounded by a much larger French force along with Native American tribes. The French and their Native American allies were responding to an ambush led by Lieutenant Colonel Washington at nearby Jumonville, Glen, named for a French officer who died in the attack. The skirmish at Jumonville, Glen was an international incident that is considered the opening conflict of the French and Indian War and led Washington to retreat to the Great Meadows and build Fort Necessity. So when you look out here, there are some signs that they have displayed with little trees on them, and that really indicates where the original tree line would have been. You can see that the British really would have been surrounded, and that all contributed to eventually the British having to surrender to the French. So unlike forts like Fort Ligonier and Fort Duquesne, Fort Necessity was really just built to protect the supplies that the Army had here. It was really built out of necessity to protect these really important supplies. This is a reconstructed version of what the little log cabin that stored all of the supplies could have looked like. They had supplies like their shot, their gunpowder, and of course their rum. And so this is what they were trying to protect while the British were being surrounded by the French and the Native Americans. One thing that's really cool to imagine is that back in the time of Washington during the French and Indian War, these forests would have been much different. You would have had much larger trees, and that was one of the challenges of getting up over the mountains here in Pennsylvania, is that there were just so many rocks, the trees were so large, and so you kind of have to also reimagine what the natural landscape looks like too. So today, Fort Necessity National Battlefield is part of the National Park Service, and it's one of the few national parks that you can find in the Laurel Highlands, and they've recently been doing some renovations, and you can see that they put in a beautiful new paved path so you can go straight from the visitor center back to the fort. So just up from Fort Necessity National Battlefield is Mount Washington Tavern, and this is actually built on land that was once owned by George Washington. This is built on the National Road, which is the first federally funded road in the United States, and you can hear the traffic behind us, and that is still where the road is today. And behind me is a Conestoga wagon, and these were really important wagons for hauling freight over the mountains. Today we're hiking the Jonathan Run Trail at Ohiopyle State Park, and this is one of my favorite trails because there are a bunch of little waterfalls along Jonathan Run that not a lot of people visit because you have to do a little bit more hiking to get to it, but they're really pretty, so we're going to go try to see that today. So being in southwestern Pennsylvania, in May it's pretty typical that we get a lot of rain, so of course when we hike there are tons of like muddy trails. So hopefully I don't fall or wipe out going down this really muddy hill. So let's see how this goes. One really nice thing about the Jonathan Run Trail is that you're pretty much walking right next to the stream the entire time, so it sounds really pretty, and it's nice that if you want to just kind of step off the trail and enjoy the water, you can. Run falls, and these falls are kind of hidden off of the path, so there really isn't a very accessible way to get down here, so it'll be an adventure getting down to the falls. And you can see them a little bit behind me, and we're really excited to see them today. I only managed to get one of my feet wet, so I'm trying to get all the water out. Alright, so we just finished up our hike at the Jonathan Run Trail. It felt really good to be outside and hiking in the woods today. So I think now we're going to go check out one of the overlooks that we haven't looked at before. We just left Jonathan Run Trail and we just took a quick drive over to Tharp Knob picnic area, and just right off from that, going towards the Kentuck Trail, there's a little scenic overlook and you have this beautiful view of the town of Ohiopyle below.